We're getting into all the blood, guts, and gore with some movie reviews. Some fun horror trailers. And has the MCU found their Mr. Fantastic? That's what we're talking today. Welcome to the madness. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Monday Madness with Morgan and the Machine. Hello, the Morgan.
Hello, the Machine. My reactions to things in your
So
intros
good.
are just going.
I'm trying to keep
more
it. I'm
stupid.
trying to be like, charismatic here, and then you're just being ridiculous on the side, making it very difficult for me. But
But no, that's because you were talking about blood and guts and horror movies, and I was pretending to be mutilated off screen.
no, it's perfect.
That was what was going on.
Yes, we need the madness in Monday Madness. So
The madness is very important. It is, and the madness of my hair today is very floofy as well. So
I think it's working. I think it's working.
if you do have the pleasure of watching Monday Madness, if you are a watcher as opposed to a listener of Monday Madness, and you are here on the It's a Wonderful Podcast YouTube channel, you'll be able to see the fluffiness of my hair today, which
That's not a bad thing.
Well, it's a little too extreme. It looks like Elvis. A little bit. Which
I think you're rocking it. It's fine.
Rocking it like Elvis.
Yeah.
Rock it till you drop it. Rock it till you drop it. That doesn't make
Is that
sense.
an Elvis song?
No, I don't think that is an Elvis. Rock it till you drop it. That sounds like a High School Musical song, if anything, doesn't it?
It does. It
sounds
does.
like it would be something off that. Anyway, we actually do have a lot of blood and guts and gore and nastiness we talk about today in an episode full of vampires and demons and things like that.
Possessions.
Possessions. That seems to be what's going on in the world of movies these days. We, of course, didn't have an episode last week. As Jeannine, we were both at separate weddings.
Yes. We both guested at some weddings, so no opportunity to record a Monday show. But we're back today. Yeah, with all the fun blood, guts, and gore, with some fun reviews and some fun new horror trailers. And some interesting casting rumors.
Yes, we always obviously like to talk about MCU things anyway, don't we? We do that fairly well, I think, on Monday Madness on this channel. But yeah, we of course have our review of Renfield as well, which is last week's movie.
Yeah.
Or the week before's movie. But obviously, like we said, we didn't have an episode last week. So we will be having two main reviews today in our Let's Talk of Renfield and of Evil Dead Rise. But before we get into that, we do have to ask the question, I think, Jeannine. So, that was a poor asking of the question. So, Jeannine, yay. I don't know.
We got a couple things up today. Yes, in actually seeing Renfield, I saw a really fun trailer for, well, I guess this movie's not meant to be fun, but it's fun for horror fans.
I think it's fun.
Yes, of a new Dracula movie coming out called The Last Voyage of the Demeter. So it's very much a Nosferatu on a boat. Dracula boat movie.
It is. We're lovingly referring to it as the Dracula boat movie.
It's a ship, I am aware, but I just want to call it the Dracula boat.
Do people get, up in arms about
Some
what's a
people
boat
do.
and what's a ship?
Some people do.
Are we at the coast? Are we nautical seafaring people? I don't think we are. I might, have my lighthouse keeper turtleneck on today, but it doesn't mean that I'm a nautical person who gets up in arms about whether things are ships or whether things are boats. It's the Dracula boat movie, but it is called The Last Voyage of Demeter. Or Demeter, or however you pronounce that. I have no idea how you pronounce that. It's not clear from that title that it will be a Dracula movie at all, is it? No, it isn't. But what is quite exciting is that this is an entire movie based on one chapter of Dracula.
Yes, and you were gonna say, I remember you telling me that this was kind of like story canon, and just an aspect of that
Oh yeah,
Dracula story.
I mean,
This is the
you see,
transportation of him.
yeah, from Transylvania, from the Carpathian Mountains to Whitby, where he obviously kind of ends up buying the abbey and infiltrating people's minds and things like this, as Dracula likes to do. No, this is the entire journey, and you see this in previous Dracula movies. You know, you see a depiction of this in Nosferatu. If you watch, you know, the original Nosferatu, you see a depiction of this in Dracula, quite lovingly retold at the beginning of Renfield, and I'm sure we'll get into that
Yes.
when you see Renfield kind of smiling crazily at the bottom of those stairs, and you get that lovely kind of straight up shot of him looking directly into the camera, wide-eyed and insane because he's just got off this ship. This is an entire movie about that journey and about Dracula. Causing chaos on that particular ship to the crew, because that's what happens in the story. That, you know, the ship ends up in Whitby Harbour without any crew, and kind of Dracula just rises from the dirt coffin that he has on there and goes about his business.
Yes, but I mean, even the start of this trailer, like, just the vibe of it, and then seeing Sir Davos, I'm over here like, is
Oh yes,
this
he is.
an
Yes,
episode
he
of
is.
Game of Thrones? Like,
He does like the sea, Liam Cunningham, doesn't he? Actually,
yes,
yeah,
he does.
he does. I think someone like him fits in this so well.
Yes, yes, yeah. It was good
Always
to see
willing
him.
to play a Victorian era sea captain or something like that. He
Yes, he
fits
definitely
that
fits like
role
that. Yeah.
wonderfully. And I think this looks like a really quite fun movie. A very kind of obviously dark movie. I think it's got European influence in there. I don't know if it's a Danish director or a Scandinavian director of some degree.
Yeah, I was getting that vibe as well, like Scandinavian or something like that.
I believe the person playing this version of Dracula, and by the way, this version of Dracula is this sort of winged skeletal creature. He's not,
So we only
suave and
see,
sophisticated.
he's like evil Dobby, like with the ears and
Evil
like,
Dobby.
like just the ears and everything like that. And
that
we
would be
only
a very different movie.
Yeah, yes. So we
Imagine
do
that.
see the wings and very pointed ears and the bald head. And so I love that they kind of just show from behind and from shadow, and we don't get any big reveals, because, you know, trailers love to do that. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we got hints and glimmers of kind of how terrifying this thing's gonna look.
Obviously, this is much more of a bat-like depiction of Dracula, and I think that's, you know, why not do that?
But then it's also like, why not just fly away? Why are you staying on this boat?
Because they're being transported to
Sorry.
somewhere proper, and he doesn't want to run the risk of going into the sunlight, does he? So he has to. He can't just fly away.
Yeah.
He has to have his earth, doesn't he? He has to be
He has to have his
transported
underground hiding. Yeah.
in earth of his homeland. So
Plus, I
this
mean,
is the
free
whole
food
thing.
right there. So
Free food on the ship, exactly. That's the point. You can drain all of the ship's crew to feed on. And I think it looks a very dark movie, but the kind of really quite dark horror movie that you will end up quite enjoying. And I think to expand just one small chapter of Dracula into an entire movie, and have it be this, really, have it be the seafaring voyage, is scary enough anyway. I mean, the sea's terrifying. Going out on the open ocean surely is terrifying, especially in storms when you're not quite sure what you're carrying in your cargo hold.
And especially in that time where, you know, there's disease and sickness,
Yeah.
and in the middle of nowhere. But I think they're also going to be able to do some interesting elaborating with the characters before we even get into the Dracula stuff because, it looks like a very, good cast of actors that we've seen do some great things. And even in the trailer, we kind of open getting to know these characters and getting to see a bit
Yeah.
of their dynamic before we even get into the Dracula stuff. So I think how they'll probably be able to expand this one chapter is doing a lot of interesting character dynamics and, having uh whatever little crews left by the end of this kind of have to come together and try to survive. So I think we'll get some good character stuff in terms of being able to expand this one chapter.
Yes, definitely. I mean, you've got Corey Hawkins in
Mhm.
here, David Dastmalchian's in
Yes.
this movie. The guy playing Dracula himself is called Javier Botet, but I've never heard of this man. So this is clearly just an example of somebody basically being the body for this demon,
Yeah,
rather
so he
than
might be a Doug
Botet.
Jones type who just has the
Precise. That
presence and
appears
yeah, yeah.
that appears to be what it is. But no, I'm into this. I'm very much into this. I mean,
Yes,
the
me
amount
too.
of Dracula movies we seem to be getting as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've just had Renfield. You've got this. You've got Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, and something that I've just seen is Chloe Zhao's doing a Dracula movie.
Oh,
Apparently,
okay.
that's going to be not a period set movie, as far as I'm aware, and apparently Pattinson's in talks for this,
Oh,
which,
okay.
bringing back to the world of vampires, why not,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Why not have him play a serious vampire now that he's had his silly
Romancy,
vampire stuff?
spangly, sparkly. Yeah.
You can go serious and dark vampire and, about kind of supposedly this one seems to be focused on people at the fringes of society and all this kind of stuff, whether Dracula feels himself a serious outsider, and this kind of, it seems to be, from the very little I know of it, a little bit of a mix tonally
Yeah.
between Dracula that we know and the kind of and a Nosferatu, really, that's kind of just like this creature, this insipid,
Yeah.
diseased creature. I think Pattinson could do great with that, and
Oh,
Chloe
yeah,
Zhao's a
definitely.
great director, so I'm into that. But all
Yeah.
this Dracula stuff, all this vampire stuff, it's like
It's
staggering at the
exciting.
minute. Where's it all come
Yes.
from?
But it's fun. It's a great
Oh, I
character
love
to
it.
play with. So much lore behind it and so much to play with there. So, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited for all the Dracula things.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Well, speaking of potential casting rumours, Jeannine, is we have
Mm.
Fantastic Four's back with its who will play the Fantastic Four conversation. And will it be Mr. Adam Driver as Mr. Fantastic? Do you think this would be a good idea? This is not confirmed. This
No,
is
this is
a heavy rumor
rumors.
that's been
Yes, this is
circling this
rumors
week.
that he's in final talks for the role. Definitely not someone I would first think of outright, but in hearing it and thinking about it, I could see it. Adam Driver
I
has
could see it.
amazing range for sure. Like watch him in something like, the Star Wars sequels and then watch him in something like A Marriage Story or
Yeah,
this great family comedy, This Is Where I Leave You, where he's kind of just this goofy womanizer character um, and very immature and silly. So um, he can play it all. He can play serious, he can play comedic, he can play intelligent, he can play intense. So um, I definitely trust his range and of course we get our character mock-ups and
we
graphic
do.
designer
Yes.
versions of how he would look and it looks pretty good to me. So yeah, it's definitely not somebody I would think of right off the bat, but in kind of thinking about Adam Driver as an actor, I could actually see it.
I think strangely I'm not as into it as you might be.
Okay.
Because I mean, I always kind of wanted Adam Driver to play Dracula as we're talking about Dracula, because I think that's a good bit of casting. Because of the kind of almost calm intensity of him, and he's very tall and kind of gaunt, and
yeah.
Yes, okay, he's able to be silly, but that doesn't mean he's also not able to be really, really terrifying when he wants to be.
Yeah.
And completely intimidating. I'm not sure whether, because Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, is a kind of nerdy genius. First and foremost, he's first and foremost, he's basically adult Peter Parker, right? Even though Peter Parker, yes, okay, he's like 20 now in the MCU, whatever. Well, not 20, I don't know how old he is. Tom Holland's like my age, anyway.
Yeah, he's like 18. He's going to college.
Adam Driver really give off what I think is nerdy excitement as much as Reed Richards probably should? Because I've seen another casting thrown out there from a lot of people, and ultimately he did actually already show up in the MCU fairly recently as well. But William Jackson Harper as Mr. Fantastic, I think has more, and this obviously comes from him in The Good Place, this kind of really neurotic kind of nature.
Yeah.
But I think that's almost what Mr. Fantastic is. That's always what I've got from Mr. Fantastic, as opposed to someone that's actually a real charismatic leader. He grows into that. But I think first and foremost, he has to be a complete geek.
Who's just very excited about anything scientific.
Yeah. And does Adam Driver give off that?
Does he give off one of the smartest men on the planet?
I'm not saying he couldn't do. I think he could do anything, and I wouldn't be mad at this casting. I don't think. I think it's silly to get mad at a lot of castings unless it's obviously some sort of racist situation, which we should be getting mad at because that's just silly and nonsensical. I wouldn't be mad if Adam Driver did get cast, but I almost think he would suit a villain more. And maybe this is just me wanting him to play villains.
or just have the Kylo in your brain because he was so strong in that. Yeah.
Perhaps it is. Or this obsession I have with him playing Dracula at some point. I don't know. Because I've been talking about that for years. I remember bringing that up first years and years and years ago.
Okay.
But really, you know what these people are like, and you know what people are going to be like when people do get cast as the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to love it. Everybody's going to... Oh, well, there will be people that love it. There'll be most people generally in the public, I suppose, that will go, okay, yeah, fair, okay, let's see it, yeah. Fine. But... And there'll be those people that'll be like, yes, this is the best thing ever. And then there'll be a bunch of people who you won't
are
hear
very
the
disappointed.
End of going, yes, this is the worst thing ever. Let's burn everything to the ground.
Yeah. So you're never going to please everybody with these kinds of decisions. But
you know, I find it interesting. I find it interesting that Adam Driver's a
definitely not someone I would have immediately thought of at all. But, you know, I definitely think he's capable. He's got great range, and he's a likable actor. And yeah, I would just love to see him in general, like, get into the MCU, get into that kind of superhero side of things. I think he'd be great. So
do they give him, I mean, imagine him with the grey streaks, the silver streaks in the side of his hair.
They have to.
You've got to do that, right?
You have to. Yeah.
At some point, by the end of that movie, he's got to have those. I mean, that's just his natural hair, though. So,
well, I mean, in
is it his natural? They didn't
in
do
the
it in
early
the 2005 one, did they?
they did, but he got it as a result of the kind of
Ah.
space explosion that happened. So like the space explosion happened, affected all of them, and one of his effects was getting the gray on the sides. So he didn't have that at the beginning of the movie. He had it after he got his powers. So it was there. John Krasinski had it as well. So
John Krasinski did have it, actually, didn't he? Yeah.
So they have to. It's iconic.
And you almost forget about the fact that John Krasinski showed up.
Yeah, and they literally only did it just for like a fun fan casting thing. So yeah.
Now that's out the window completely because they did it in that. So
yeah, and I
that
think
was always everybody's obsession.
Yeah, and I think they've admitted that they really only did that for like a fun fan cast cameo type thing.
Yeah, it was going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting regardless. I mean, we do have another little bit of MCU thing to talk about because we did have the Marvels trailer as well, which obviously, you know, everybody hates because everybody's deeply insecure and hates themselves and hates women, really, don't they, people
well,
don't.
I'm going to say I really was not a fan, am not a huge fan of that Captain Marvel movie. I absolutely love to pieces Brie Larson. I think she's great. But whatever she was doing as that character is just not hitting for me. She just seems she just doesn't seem natural. She seems very much like she's trying a little too hard to just be so cool. Like, hey, I'm awesome. I'm Captain Marvel. I'm like totally cool. Like, it just does not feel organic to me. It feels very much like I'm fast talking and really cool, and I have all these superpowers and I'm awesome. Like, it just feels.
And do we think this is why people? I say people, creatures, really. Do we think this is why creatures of the internet go in on her, like, and go in on on that movie and have gone in on this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a little bit of the whole dumb Mary Sue concept, the Ray of it all.
Oh, I see.
You know, right. These characters, this fear of writing, you know, flawed female characters, real female characters, that's somehow demeaning to women in some way if you even give them any type of weakness or flaw, that you just have to make them completely infallible and perfect and all powerful and never failing.
And never mind all
that they don't exactly. So the fact that like that can be called out for female characters and be an annoyance to people when it's been done with male characters forever and nobody cares.
Yes.
That's where the issue comes in. So yeah, I think that is also something that gets put on the character and has mostly, you know, male the male variety kind of not into
I would say entirely.
I have my reasons for, like, you know, I stated that it doesn't, what she's doing isn't working for me. Like, she just does not feel like a real person. Like, she started as a human person. So bring that to the character. Now that you have these powers, now you're just kind of like, just very kind of, there's no ebbs and flows of her performance. She's kind of just one note as this character. So I need to see a little bit more nuance that I know Brie Larson is completely capable of, but I just haven't seen it as this character yet from her. So yeah, like Captain Marvel was just not a movie I really had a lot of fun with or wanted to revisit. I really enjoyed that friendship dynamic between her and Nick Fury, but other than that, I didn't really get too much out of that movie. It's not one I'm excited to revisit when I do a kind of whole big Marvel rewatch. So I'm hoping to get more from the character in this movie. The trailer looks really fun. I'm really curious about the dynamic between these three women. I loved Miss Marvel. Obviously, I loved Monica in WandaVision, and I love Tiana Paris. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic because, you know, they hinted that she has some type of resentment towards Carol. Meanwhile, Ms. Marvel is, you know, fangirling over Carol. So it's going to be very much these interesting layers. And the trailer looked like a lot of fun. And I love these three actresses. So I'm really excited to see kind of their dynamic together. And then, you know, we have our female villain, Tom Hiddleston, bringing his soon to be wife into the mix as an MCU villain as well. So that's
Yeah.
really fun.
I mean, I've been excited for this movie for a while. I am someone that does enjoy. I did enjoy Captain Marvel. I don't really completely valid opinions that you do have. I don't really share those opinions that you
Okay.
have of the character of Captain Marvel. I just view this as an all powerful, you know, her as a kind of all powerful character. So it kind of makes sense to me that she feels a little bit almost static, kind of, you know, almost not
Yeah. Hmm.
particularly excitable. Like, because we see this so often in all
Yeah.
powerful characters. They are just like that. So it just makes sense to me. I don't know. So I don't really have an issue with that. Whatever. Ultimately, Carol's not even what I'm most excited for in this movie. It is Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
This is what I want. I just want all the Kamala Khan going forward entirely. Because Miss Marvel was so great as a
Yes, and
series.
getting to see her family
Such
in this movie, like, yeah.
yes, the families, the whole Khan family's back. I love the idea of it being kind of this um change, like if you use your powers, you kind of switch
Switch
places
places, yeah.
with each other as the three, you know, as the three Marvels. I find that interesting. Like, why are they doing that? What's caused this? We don't know. How
Yeah.
very, you know, dangerous in some circumstances. But what an interesting way of trying to figure out how almost to get
What's
around
happening.
that while
Yeah, while trying
fighting
to do
your
what they need
villain
to
that you're gonna
do.
get.
Yes, yeah.
Um, but it's going to be, and I think if it was being dealt with by anybody else, but I think Iman Vellani's so great at this excitable nature.
Yeah.
I think in the hands of another person, that would become very annoying. But basically, we had that throughout the entirety of Miss Marvel, the TV show. We had her being kind of
Really
excitable,
excitable. Yeah, mhm.
and it never once got annoying, and that's a full TV show.
Yes,
So this
and
is
that
going,
dynamic in contrast
yes,
to the other 2.
this is, yes, exactly. The dynamic in contrast to the other two, I just don't feel it's going to be remotely annoying. And I
Yeah,
feel like in the hands of of another person, it
yeah,
could be,
definitely.
but I think this is a testament to how great I think she is in that role.
Yeah. She
This is what
definitely
she is what I'm going to this movie to see mainly. She
yeah.
is what I'm most excited to see in this movie. It really is. Yes, uh, Teyana Paris, Monica, obviously coming from WandaVision, really interesting to see what's going on there. Like you say, the dynamic between the three of them, it's basically going to be Carol not knowing what the hell's kind of like, whoa, okay, you're who? You're the daughter of Maria. You hate me? Let me explain why you probably shouldn't hate me.
Yeah.
And then you've got Kamala going, oh my God, you're the best. And it's going to be like, let me explain to you why you maybe shouldn't love people this much.
Yes.
And it's going to be reined in for the two of them, I think, based around Carol. But the three of them are going to end up being this team as much as the two adults in the situation maybe don't want the you know, the team aspect with this
Yeah, they kind of
15-year-old
probably
girl.
Yeah, and they're probably gonna wanna handle it on their own, but are gonna have to realize they have to work together. Also curious to see, how Nick Fury factors in and why he's been, doing all this stuff with Sword and how he got there and, maybe a
Well,
little
yeah,
bit in
well,
terms of what's been going on with him working in space all this time.
we're going to be having Secret Invasion
Yeah,
before
so
this
that's
movie
definitely going
comes
to
out, aren't
yeah.
we? So
Yeah. Yeah.
we're going to know a hell of a lot of more of what Fury's been up to, what Fury's been doing, where Fury's mindset is before we see this movie in November.
Yeah.
But this trailer, I mean, it gave me a clearer indication on the story of the movie, I suppose. And I had no idea it would be this whole changing places when you use your powers kind of situation or issue that we're going to be faced in this movie. I was just
Yeah.
interested and excited to see them all play against each other and play
Yes,
off
I mean,
each other. And
we did get a little hint at that at the end of Miss Marvel with her and Carol switching places. So that scene of Carol ending up in her
yes,
room was
yeah,
the scene from that episode of Miss Marvel, that last
it
episode.
was. But even at that point, it's just it's not clear that that is a permanent thing that continues to happen. But in
Yeah.
this trailer, it is depicted as a permanent thing that continues to happen. I think it's going to be a very, very fun movie. I think I'm going to enjoy this movie a lot. I also think it's going to get absolutely review bombed because people are just terrible, and
Yeah, they're gonna
the public
yeah.
is terrible. But I think it
Yes.
will be deeply unfair because I think this will be a very, very fun movie.
It looks like a lot of fun, and yeah, because it's gonna be female-led, it's gonna be this whole talk about, wokeness and, uh
What a sad reality.
yes, and this, phony display of female excellence, and it's gonna be just this awful, shitty debate, and not looking forward to that, but this
No,
movie looks like a lot of fun. I mean, even the use of the Beastie Boys song was pitch perfect.
yeah,
Like, intergalactic planetary with all this, space hopping and all kinds of stuff, and yeah, I mean, it's not just a dynamic of where these characters are at in terms of how they view Carol. It's also just like you said, very much different personalities. We have Kamala who's really excitable and just happy to be there. We have Monica who's very professional and dedicated to her work. And then Carol who's just like I said, kind of just too cool for
she's
school and just doing
nonchalant.
her thing and very just chill, like, I got this, I'm a lone wolf. I can handle this on my own.
Yeah,
So yeah, those three personality aspects are going to be really interesting to see. It looks like we're visiting some cool planets. I know one of them, people have talked about it being like this all musical planet. So that's where some
okay,
musical elements are going to come in, I guess.
okay.
Um,
Why not?
so yeah, so this looks like a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it, even as someone who really was not the biggest fan of Captain Marvel, but a huge fan of Brie Larson. Um, and just even in this trailer, I was liking what I was seeing from her. So I think she's just going to have a little bit more to work with in terms of character she's bouncing off of and conflict she's going to have to deal with. So I think that's really going to bring her back to some human aspects for me as a character, which I'm excited to
Yeah,
see. So
probably. That's a good point.
yeah,
That is a good point. It's just a sad reality that it's going to be heavily unfairly criticized, and you know full well
yeah,
it will be.
yeah,
Even if it's not a great movie, you will hear non-stop the violent vocalization of this is one of the worst movies ever. And this will be if it's like an average movie, you will hear that.
yes,
If it's a
yeah,
good movie, you will hear bottom tier MCU. If it's a great movie, you will hear bad movie. If it's an absolutely flawless movie that's like top tier MCU movie, you will hear nowhere near as good as blah blah blah.
yeah, people are only liking it for the wokeness and, they just don't wanna look
Correct.
like they just don't wanna be called a misogynist, and that's the only reason they're saying they like
Uh, what
it.
a what a ridiculous thing when we already know how a lot of people are going to react to this movie. And I say people again, I don't think these people are real people. I think they are just cesspool creatures.
Yeah.
But whatever it may be, I think real people will, well, appear to have fun with this movie. I think it appears to be a very, very fun movie, and I certainly hope it is. And really, how can you hate Kamala Khan?
Yeah.
Like, if there's one thing all the creatures, all the cesspool creatures, that I genuinely will not believe they believe, is any hatred they throw at Kamala Khan.
No, she's
because
great.
you just can't. You just can't. There's no way. There's no way you can't just love her enthusiasm for everything.
Yeah.
This is what we need. We need people like this to bring joy into the world. And bring joy into the MCU. What a miserable affair.
Yeah, I mean, these past releases have not been to the level of excitement that I felt. Yeah, I mean, but also just I haven't been really excited for anything. Like, I've watched it and I've enjoyed them as decent movies and interesting to see the progression of our characters after everything that's happened after Endgame. But I don't have that MCU excitement, and I want it back. And this trailer gave me a little bit of that. So
yeah, I think we will eventually get there. We will. Yeah. And I think a lot of that excitement has probably been beaten down by the Jonathan Majors situation as well, because I think we were excited for him and
what he was going to bring to it, and
are now much less excited for
yes. So that's a whole big mess of a situation.
It is
for sure.
It is a mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess for the people involved. It's a mess for this particular movie franchise, but that comes second to the mess that it is for the people involved.
Yeah, I'm curious what Marvel's kind of thinking behind the scenes, and I'm sure they're in close contact with people involved and trying to figure out, which way this is leaning, because one side is, we're seeing, if your PR team and management is dropping you,
not a good look, is it?
No, it seems like, okay, if your PR can't find a spin on this, then there probably isn't a spin on this. But then he's, there's word out here that he's talking to the DA and he's given them surefire proof that he didn't do anything. There's some screenshots of a video of the alleged girlfriend out at a club, partying, drinking, having a good time after this incident supposedly happened. So she didn't go to the hospital. She wasn't injured if she was out clubbing like just after. So
I think it's all very it's all very supposed. It's all very
still both sides and a lot to read into. So that could definitely
still not a good look. It's
for
still
sure.
A terrible, terrible look, really.
Yes. So really curious to see what the MCU is thinking right now. So just kind of maybe not thinking about Loki too much right now, season 2.
No.
And maybe skipping over that and trying to reevaluate what they do have in the works. And a lot of the things I think are going to pertain to where we end up for the Marvels. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But the Marvels, yes.
Looks
excitement.
Great. Yes, I'm excited.
Excitement for the Marvels, as we knew we would have. There is another trailer that we did want to bring up today, and this is a weird one because it's actually not I suppose movie series that I'm massively into and that I'm massively excited
or well versed in. Yeah,
well versed in at all. But there's a 5th Insidious movie.
Yeah, so I'm like, there have been 5 of these movies.
I didn't know there'd been 5 of them.
Same. I've only really seen the first one, and I thought maybe there were 3 or something, but the fact that we're on 5, and like, I don't really know much about this franchise. I don't really know what it's about. I watched the trailer. I'm like, I'm glad everyone's come back. I knew it was Ty Simpkins' child in the first film, so to see him kind of now grown up and going to college and so what's going to happen with all of that. So, I'm kind of on this mission to really catch all of the horror this year. So I might have to do a little marathon of these movies and check this one out. So not particularly exciting to me just because it's not a franchise I've really, watched or know a lot about. So
yeah, look, this movie is it appears to be, Ty Simpkins dealing with the trauma of the first movie, or attempting to,
yeah,
or
and
coming back
he's
to him.
yes, and him maybe not remembering because he's talking about, I was in a coma and that's all I remember. And his mom is telling him there are things that we kept from you and secrets. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I remember enjoying the first movie, just never watching the rest of it. It's a
yeah,
major horror release of the year, though. I think it has to be considered a major horror release of the year.
yeah,
Patrick Wilson's always going to be great. Patrick Wilson is a staple of 2010s horror, really, isn't he?
yeah,
And him back here again. I can't actually speak to the rest of the Insidious movies. I can just speak to that first one. I think is a really good movie for its time, because I think early 2010s horror is in a particularly strange kind of era,
yeah,
when we're generally speaking at a fairly low point in quality of horror, and then we come back with these kind of home family possession movies,
yeah. So that's when our Conjuring is kind of
Conjuring,
coming up.
Sinister, these
Yeah,
kind of movies.
yeah,
There are all these really kind of bleak affairs as well. They're
yeah.
not necessarily fun. I don't think Insidious is remotely fun. I think it's an
No,
effective horror movie, an effective kind of, family breakdown kind of movie. And then family come together kind of,
yeah.
situation.
And I think, it's not like Evil Dead where they can make that possession type situation kind of fun because they're throwing some of that
No,
camp in there. Um,
no, it's very
so
serious. It
those movies
takes itself
are taking
very
themselves
seriously.
very seriously. Yeah, and that's the difference.
Um, so there looks to be good stuff going on in Insidious, the Red Door, as
Yeah.
it's called. This new one, and you know, is it a legacy sequel 10 years after the first one? It half feels
Kinda.
like it, which is
Yeah.
a strange thing to do.
Yeah.
Legacy sequels should be 30, 40 years. I thought this was established. But no, we're doing it with 10-year-old movies now, which is just silly, I think. Unless it isn't being treated as a legacy sequel and is just actually just a straight
Just a continuation,
sequel.
yeah.
But dealing with, childhood trauma that you don't fully understand is kind of fits right with this tone of horror movie, doesn't it? Because it
Yeah.
will be treating itself very seriously. I think it will be a decent movie. I will definitely just have to, if I do find myself wanting to go and watch this movie, I will certainly have to catch
Have
up
to do a
on
little
the Insidious
marathon, yeah,
movies.
for sure. Because I have no idea, and I haven't even seen the first one in ages, so I don't even
No,
really
I
remember,
haven't. No,
even what happens in that first movie, so
but it's a big horror trailer of the year, and it's a fairly
yeah.
major horror release. Even though us being fans of horror, maybe not as excited for this as we are for
No, but
several others.
I do wanna show up for horror this year for sure, so
Definitely, definitely. Well, let's talk about some horror then now, Janine, because let's
Yes.
move from our What's Up into our Let's Talk. We do have two main reviews for today. Both horror movies, I suppose. I mean, is one of them really a horror movie?
A horror
No, it's
comedy,
a
I'd say,
silly
maybe.
movie. It's a
Yeah,
goofball of a movie,
I
and we
think it can
kind
be
of enjoy
classified
that.
as horror comedy, maybe.
Sure, sure. Do we want to start with that one then? Which should
Yeah,
we
since it
start
was
with?
supposed to be, the one we probably would have talked
Okay,
last week.
okay. Well,
Yes.
this will be our full review then of Renfield.
Yes.
Nicolas Cage, Nicholas Hoult, and now I've forgotten who else is in Renfield, and I literally spoke about
Awkwafina, Ben
12 hours
Schwartz.
ago. Awkwafina, yes. Who I always like Awkwafina. There was people complaining that Awkwafina always does the same thing. I do not care. So many actors throughout history have done the same thing.
Yeah, no, and I think
their
she was
entire
just
career, and
she
it's
just
always
kind of
been great.
she had this kind of issue in terms of like using black scent and kind of doing things like that and not really being too understanding or apologetic of how um
I must
that
have
might
missed this. When was this?
how that might be upset people. So I mean, in the early stages of her career, she was doing kind of this black scent thing, and she's continued to do it on other shows that she's been a part of, and so yeah, that was kind of the biggest controversy, kind of surrounding her in recent times, and so I don't know if that's still something that our people are frustrated about. And I want to say when like people were trying to bring that to her attention, she was very much like, I don't care kind of attitude. So I liked Aquafina in the earlier things I've seen her in. I think the first thing I even saw her in was Crazy Rich Asians, and I thought she was really great in that and really likable. Liked her in Shang-Chi. Um, so yeah, I mean, I like her as an actress, and I haven't really seen her do a lot of that. What people are describing, I know she's done in kind of maybe comedy stuff and shows that she's done. I think she did it a little bit when she was in that Ocean's 8 movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't speak to that. I wasn't even aware of that. So
No.
I have liked her in everything I've seen her in, even though she does have the same kind of comedy beat. She's the same really kind of
Loud, fast talking, kinda,
yeah, almost frustrated
Yeah.
comedian when she's kind of just everything's got on it.
Yes.
Everything's just comes with that. And it's always like, right, what would you God, it's gotta be like this. It's very, very energetic
Yeah.
and almost almost frustrated, like I said, but I do find her very likable.
Yes.
I
I
do.
mean, how did you feel that they, like, hinted at a romance but didn't, like, really fully go for it?
Oh, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Ultimately, look, I think Renfield is a very bold kind of tone mash. And I mean that in because ultimately it's a Dracula movie, but it's
Yeah.
also a police crime thriller. But it's also a stupid, goofy movie. But it's also trying to say something about having self-love
Codependency and
and
and being
codependency.
independent. Yeah.
Trying to throw a full romance in there as well, I think would have been a little too much. And at
Fair.
times it feels like it's a little too, I don't want to say all over the place, but it's getting on that track sometimes. Now, don't get me wrong. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I really did enjoy this movie. I think it's got so much love
Yeah.
for Dracula lore, for vampire lore,
Oh,
for this
yeah,
kind of
that
thing.
opening was so fun.
The opening of the movie, I mean, the very ending of the movie, like usually when you get to the end of the movie, you'll have the title of the movie come up on screen,
Mhm.
say like the end, Renfield, like you get in this movie, and it had the yellow kind of
Yes.
Dracula font
Font,
where it
yeah.
where it
Has the
I don't even
teeth
know
and the
how to
fangs.
describe that
Yeah,
font.
it's, like,
How do
pointy.
you even describe that font? It kind of goes back in on itself,
Yeah,
you'll see the
mhm.
Dracula poster, the yellow text, and it had that
Yeah.
at the end. The opening of the movie, I think, is just wonderful. I mean, you get the whole fairly quickly told flashback story of how Renfield, Nicholas Hoult comes to
Be
meet
the familiar,
Dracula,
yeah.
comes to be Dracula's familiar, and it is all played out in the scenes of Dracula 1931 of Bela Lugosi's
Yeah.
Dracula
It looks
that
so good.
appears to be literal just digital insertion of
Yes,
Nicolas
like
Hoult and
superimposed
Nicolas
in
Cage
those actual scenes. Yeah.
into those scenes. Yes, because it's far too accurate to not be that. Like, they
Yeah.
haven't recreated things there. They haven't. They are playing those scenes from that movie. I mean, there's shots without them or without those two in the opening that are direct shots from Dracula. Like,
Yeah.
that is just a shot from Dracula. You don't see Nick Cage, you don't see Nicholas Hoult. It's like, I think there's one on the boat, actually. We were talking about the Dracula boat movie before.
Hmm.
There is one on the boat that's just like, yes, that is a shot from Dracula.
Yeah.
That is very clearly, and I know full well that is a shot from Dracula. I loved this opening. Showing just so much love for a movie that, and I suppose an era of movies that Universal have tried so
To
hard and
revive
so
and bring
poorly
back. Yeah.
to bring back. So poorly. Like, they can't do it. They seem incapable of being able to do it properly.
Yeah.
But almost this is how you do it. Because this showed more love for those movies than
Than any of those
any
other
of the
ones.
stupid attempts, Dracula Untold and all this kind. Is it
Yeah.
called Dracula Untold? What's it called? The one with
Yeah.
Luke Evans.
Mm-hmm.
Any of those stupid movies ever did. You know, it shows way more love for that. To have
Yeah.
it directly involve the
Those
movie
scenes from
Dracula
that movie. Yeah, it was a fun surprise to see that. For sure.
right at the beginning is wonderful. And Nick Cage is giving it absolutely
Oh
everything that he
yeah. Oh
wanted
yeah.
to
He's
as
totally
well.
hamming up. You can tell this was like a role he's wanted to play um
But
for a
a
long
role he's
time.
wanted to play stupidly, because let's call it what it is. Nick Cage likes being serious every now and again. I think I saw a recent
But
interview with him where his favorite movie he's ever made was Pig, which is really quite a serious movie.
yeah.
You know, it's personal. It's kind of quiet. It's not shouty Nick Cage. This is shouty Nick Cage. He
Like very
clearly also
campy, over
loves
the
doing
top,
this.
having fun. Yeah.
And why not do it? It's perfect. It doesn't demean the character of Dracula, this particular performance. It, I think, brings fun to the character
Yeah.
of Dracula.
Mhm.
And I think people watching this who haven't seen Dracula, you know, or the older Dracula movies, whatever, however, there's obviously dozens, really,
Yes.
but who haven't seen older Dracula movies, obviously still aware of Dracula, but this movie, I think, will open them up. Will open those movies up to more people because of how fun this depiction of Dracula was, and how fun this depiction of the relationship, or the Dracula Renfield relationship was, even though it's obviously very horrible, very manipulative, very domineering. To have it be, you know, to have the whole movie be a story about learning to love yourself,
Yeah.
Renfield learning to love yourself,
Learning to break
steer
free
away.
from, learning to put the energies that you put into somebody else into yourself.
Yeah, which is, I think, a really positive message, and a message that's dealt
Yeah.
with really quite well in the movie.
And to use this relationship dynamic of a vampire and their familiar to,
Yeah,
tackle this kind of, serious kind of issue, I think is a funny,
in a
fun thing to do.
in a strange way, it makes such an issue more accessible,
Mhm.
because it puts that fantasy element on it. It puts that it puts that fictional element on it that a lot of people, you know, need to, because they're not just going to go and watch a miserable movie about
Well,
somebody
yeah.
trying to break free of an abusive relationship, are they? Because
Yes.
who goes
And
and
we get
watches
those.
who goes and watches those movies just on a whim? Nobody really, do they? But people go
Yeah.
and watch these kind of movies on a whim because they say, "Oh, Nick Cage playing Dracula, how exciting!" And then they can
Yes.
watch a movie that's actually about breaking free from an abusive relationship.
Yes, but then there's that balance of having this support group and actually seeing people who are dealing with the real world versions of those things.
Yeah,
And the fact that it so relates to what Renfield is going through is just this really funny juxtaposition of this issue. So we
yeah,
do actually get to see the real world aspect of those people, and then the fact that's added fantastical layer of then Renfield using that as okay, the people who have hurt or abused my friends in this group, these are the people I'm going to kill and take back to Dracula for food.
yeah.
In a very much Dexter kind of aspect of, if I have to kill, I'm going to kill bad people or I'm going to attack.
Yes, kinda.
And
That
yeah.
is what Renfield's kind of mentality seems to be, but he doesn't even really want to do that, does he? He just kind of
Yeah.
wants to be a good person.
And be
I
free
think,
and do his own thing. Yeah.
yeah, I really do think the humor does work well in this movie, though, because it's completely goofy.
Yeah.
It's slapstick at times as well. I mean, Nick Cage himself is, like you said, so hammy, but like to the point where it's almost unbelievable how hammy he is because he will just shout random words like in the middle of sentences. Like one
Yeah.
word will be pronounced far differently than the rest of the sentence, and it's
Oh
things like
yeah.
that that just like, what? Have I just heard that right? Have I
Yes,
just heard?
he's
Haven't
totally
I?
going for it. He's going completely over the top, and like that's what we kind of know of him. So it works. I don't know that anyone else could have really pulled that off and really
Not to this extent.
gotten this perfect kind of mix of Bela Lugosi and the campiness of what this character is. So, in the context of this movie, so I think he's able to balance kind of what Bela Lugosi was doing as for his Dracula and the kind of silly campiness of what this movie is
Yeah,
giving.
yeah. Because to be fair, it does obviously have a lot of love for particularly Lugosi's version because that is Universal's version. So
Yeah,
that is, they're gonna show a lot of love for that one as opposed to much else. But no, I think Nick Cage really is great, but Nicholas Hoult is just perfect. I mean, I've always thought he's so great at playing kind of meek characters anyway.
yeah,
Because he's this gangly kind of individual, isn't he? Who's just kind of stick thin and kind of weedy and insecure, and he's just able. I don't know if Nicholas Hoult is like this at all. He probably isn't at all, is he really? But it he's always wonderful at playing those roles. It seems so perfect for him to play
yeah,
a character who is entirely at service of someone else and just wants to desperately get out of that,
yeah,
but he can't bring himself to, and he needs all this help. He's wonderful in this. And a lot of the humor that comes from him kind of being a little bit out of his own time because technically he's from like 100
yeah.
years ago.
Hmm.
There's a scene, he's like, oh yeah, you must have, because so Renfield gets powers from eating bugs, so he's able to like be
Yes, as the
ridiculously
familiar, he's
exciting.
given a portion of Dracula's powers
Yes,
as one of the perks of being a familiar.
but he has to eat bugs and in order to acquire this.
Yeah.
So, because this movie is also a police thriller, which it
Yeah,
is,
this whole mob takedown movie.
Ben Schwartz, by the way, who knew he could play a convincing kind of ridiculously, again, hammy, but kind of mob character.
Yeah, I mean, he's pretty
yes,
douchey. I
okay,
mean, he usually plays like these douchey characters anyway, but
he does, but
just
there was a
turning the dial to villainous is like,
this
yeah.
was the thing. Yes, okay, of course. I mean, the first thing most people, I think, saw Ben Schwartz in was Parks and Rec as Jean Ralphio playing, obviously, the ultimate douche.
Yeah.
So, of course, he's able to do that, but there's genuine intimidation that you get sometimes from him in this movie, which is not something you associate with Ben Schwartz.
Mhm.
So I give a lot of credit to him for that, and his mother in this movie, who I always forget the name of the actress, but I love her voice so
Oh
much.
my
She was in
gosh.
The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yes.
She played one of the doctors in that. I always forget her name. Her voice I just love. But I really like him in that. I really like him in this movie. Giving almost more credit to himself. You know, he's. I think it's now. You know, he would now be able to be cast in more serious roles almost.
Yes, I mean, even though this
Thanks to
was
this
kind of
movie.
silly, like he really did hit the villainous aspect. So,
Yeah.
he could take that turn the dial the other way and do the villainous serious for sure. But yeah, I think he's the perfect person to play this like son of a mob leader, kind of lackey who thinks he's a big
Yeah.
shot type. He checks all those boxes. Her name is Shora Agdashlu.
Yes. There you go. Sure. And yeah, I do recognise that. And recognise her.
In
I think
anything, and
she's
that's just
great.
that
I love
voice in
her.
general, yeah. Yeah.
But the comedy that comes from him, from Ben Schwartz works as well. The
Yeah.
comedy that comes from everybody really does work. I was saying there's a scene when, because Renfield ultimately wants to kind of save people. He wants to just be a normal human. He's getting tired of Dracula, really, isn't
Yes.
he? He doesn't want to be dealing with Dracula anymore. Dracula at this point is also like kind of half returning to power.
Yeah,
At the
he's
beginning of the
regenerating
movie.
after he's been attacked, so then it's like they've been slowly trying to regenerate him back to his full strength.
Which, by the way, the makeup again is
Oh
just
my gosh.
stunning.
Yes, lots of practical makeup. So there was a lot of CGI blood and guts and things, but when
Oh,
they actually did
sure, of course
when
there
they
was,
did
but
the practical makeup,
Dracula
especially the stuff they
himself,
were doing to Dracula, looked so good, and like his different stages of growing back,
yeah,
his strength. Yeah, it looked really good.
Dracula himself has great practical effects on him. But there is a scene in this kind of bar, restaurant, club location, because it's set in New Orleans as well, which is
Yeah.
what a perfect place to set a vampire movie of any kind anyway,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
New Orleans is full of vampires, as we all know.
Yes.
I think that's just perfect. And you don't get that many New Orleans movies, do you, Janine? No, you
No,
don't.
it's always New York or Los Angeles or
You
London.
do not get. You do not get that many New
Yeah,
Orleans movies. So I was quite
it's nice.
pleased about that. It reminds me that I want to go back to New
And
Orleans.
I've never been. That's my like dream place to go visit.
Anyway, for God's sake, say what you were saying, please. Get it out of yourself, Morgan. There is a scene when Renfield basically destroys an entire room of mobsters because they come in and they want to try and find him and Aquafina in this bar,
Yeah.
in this restaurant. And he eats this bug and he just takes them all out with this ridiculous kind of action set piece, right?
Yeah.
And Aquafina says to him, "Oh, that was very impressive. Yes, you must be military." And he says, "Well, yes, I was once in the war, the Great War." It's just, and there's a pause. Of just like
Wait,
the
what?
Great
The Great
War.
War? Which
Yes,
Great War are you
Iraq.
talking about?
Iraq, it wasn't great, 3 out of 5 stars, actually, really, I suppose. I shouldn't be calling it great war.
Yeah.
Stupid humour
Yeah.
that works in this movie.
And even this whole kind of, I mean, obviously we're getting into spoilers with this. But even that whole sequence where he's at the group and they kind of do build him up and give him the confidence to move forward with his life and be independent and move out on his own and just stop serving Dracula. And so he does, and he gets himself an apartment. And so there's a whole little montage of him like buying new clothes and brushing his hair, and the group like giving him advice on how to live a life. And he paints his apartment all these bright colors and gets all these bright clothes, and he's just like living this cute little independent life, and it's just very sweet. And also
very colorful as well, like
yes,
all the colors just been brought back to Renfield's life.
Yes, because he's just so dry and dull and pale, and after all these years of servitude. So it's nice to see that like the life he chooses, he wants it to be bright and happy. He has a whole wall of just like these cheesy inspirational posters.
He does, yes, he does.
And and then out of nowhere, like again, spoilers, when Dracula finally realizes like, where have you been? Why aren't you serving me? How dare you? And Dracula ends up killing his whole support group. And I actually felt really emotional. Like I was really sad, when because he's like, these are my friends, and he felt, he was so sad and feels guilty that it's his fault. And yes, I was feeling
you'd spent enough time with them
with these
to
people,
kind of get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And it
And
does
the fact
feel
that
like
they were
a very
all
unceremonious killing scene.
Yes, and the fact that they were all like willing to like step up and give him a piece of advice when he was, going through his big transition and all of that. So like this silly movie has been so ridiculous up to this point, and then when his whole support group gets killed by Dracula, you actually feel something. You feel really sad and scared for him, because then cops walk in and he's here with all these bodies, and yeah, you really get this emotional hit when you're not really expecting it.
You really do, and I think this movie is actually great at doing that. It's very close to being a tonal mess, but thankfully never gets to be a tonal mess.
They do keep it in a nice direct spot, as opposed to kind of veering one way or the other with how ridiculous it gets. So I really had a lot of fun with this movie. I enjoyed it. There were things that made me laugh.
Really
I liked the style of it. I mean, I liked the homages to the original Dracula film. I liked the characters. I liked using this dynamic to really speak to some real difficult dynamics in terms of abuse and codependency and things like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, just had a blast with this movie. I enjoyed it.
And look, I think we've now got ourselves a really great, completely fresh retelling of The Invisible Man a few years ago. We've got ourselves, I think, in this movie, a really fresh, really good retelling of the Dracula story and the Dracula dynamic. We'll have to wait for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein.
Yes,
to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, you don't need Dark Universe. Just do these really interesting, fun stories with these beloved characters, these known characters, and just create a story with maybe some basis in some real, original character elements, but go wholly original with it, like this movie was able to do, like The Invisible Man was able to do.
Yeah, definitely.
And you'll be on the right track, Universal, because whatever you were trying to do was not gonna work. And even though my little dream was was for all those movies to lead up to a Monster Squad remake, but ultimately
it will never work. They need to be individual. You can still make them, but they need to be individualized, because they all have, and they all should have these days, significantly different tones. Like, I think this is a perfectly reasonable way to do Dracula. because at this point, Dracula in particular, and in particular Bela Lugosi's Dracula, because really, what impression does everybody do when they do an impression of Dracula? They do Bela Lugosi's voice, which is ultimately the Count from Sesame Street as well.
Yes.
Because where does he get his voice from? Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi.
Yeah. So at this point, Dracula's voice, Dracula's attitude, everything about Dracula is so caricatured that you have to make a caricature of a movie for it to actually be a good movie.
Yeah, like you can't make this serious character thing like they were doing with Dracula Untold.
Or you change up the tone completely, like the Last Voyage of Demeter looks like it's doing, and like I would hope this potential Chloe Zhao, Pattinson, potentially Dracula movie would do.
Yeah.
If you want to do it seriously. But to do it directly, you know, in the vein of the old Universal monster movies, Dracula, I think, had to be done like this.
Yeah.
The Invisible Man, I think, is a completely different beast. You can do it like that. I think if you were to do a Wolfman as well, you could make that a really serious movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could make that such a. I think the Invisible Man, the Wolfman, should be. You know, almost take Remus Lupin from Harry Potter, and just have that level of misery and depression kind of put on an entire movie, and have them deal with that. You know, have it be very, very isolating. Have the Wolfman treated like a disease-ridden, you know, who needs to be locked away.
Yeah, and have this fear of getting close to people, this paranoia of, you know, when is it going to happen?
And have it mirror that in the real world, and have the Wolfman obviously eventually kind of come out of that and be able to deal with themselves, almost in a strange way, what Ed Norton's Incredible Hulk did.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is how you do the Wolfman, but I would like to see it done actually more seriously.
Yeah.
And more darker than something like that.
Yeah, like Invisible
Man.
Man.
Frankenstein's fair game, I think, for anything.
Yeah.
You could make goofy Frankenstein. You could make really serious Frankenstein. Guillermo del Toro, I have faith in you.
Have at it. Yeah.
So do whatever you want with that. But no, I really had a lot of fun with Renfield. I really did. Applause for Renfield.
Yay.
I think it has to be said. Well, now let's get into our second review of this Let's Talk. This is this week's big movie. This is the new Evil Dead. Evil Dead Rise. How exciting for a new Evil Dead movie. And firstly, I would just really, really love to say that I think this movie is the perfect way of redoing Evil Dead and moving away from things that not necessarily, I believe, have bogged the Evil Dead franchise down. You know, sticking with Ash, sticking with the cabin, sticking with all this stuff, because Ash versus Evil Dead as a TV show I loved. Even the Evil Dead remake from 2013. It was a remake.
I enjoyed it.
It stuck with the cabin though, didn't it? It was a remake.
Yeah.
Of essentially the first movie. It stuck with the cabin.
And so even here,
totally different.
Even here, we get the tease. We get the tease of the cabin, and you have to think. You know, I trust the hands of an executive produced by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. So obviously, you know, I think their executive producer can mean a ton of things in terms of involvement. But I'd like to think they really wanted to at least have the voice of the original films echoing in this one. So, you know, throwing in a lot of the elements, the dead eye kind of zooming across, you know, into areas and some of the quick shots and the POV shots and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
it does. It does all of that wonderfully, and yes, having them both as executive producers. I'm almost surprised Ted Raimi's not an executive producer as well. Because he's just as, lovable for the Evil Dead franchises as those two are, really.
Yeah.
His brother and Bruce Campbell. But I almost forget what I was saying now. This movie is a perfect way of keeping Evil Dead, but having it move into completely fresh territory.
Yeah.
In a completely new direction. You can now, thanks to this movie being as really good as it was, I think you can do anything with Evil Dead. I think Evil Dead now does not have to be a cabin with ash, which is what Evil Dead has had to be for its entire life, really. For people to be interested in it, for people to want to go for it.
Yeah, and but I think people actually really enjoyed the remake, yeah.
They did, and I did. I haven't seen it in a long time. I can remember little of it, to be honest with you, but I do remember enjoying it. Obviously, what that did was just tonally switch it up. It changed it from being a goofy movie to a really quite serious, nasty slasher movie. But it still had all the elements of Evil Dead. What Evil Dead Rise has is at the most core important elements of Evil Dead, while switching up so much, switching completely new characters, a completely new almost message. There's a message to this movie. This movie is actually has a kind of motherly story to it.
Yes, that parenting aspect and that protective aspect.
Has never happened in an Evil Dead movie.
Yes, I mean, we've gotten couples.
Evil Dead has been a franchise. Evil Dead has been a franchise that has predominantly and really only focused on just being, what crazy things can you show?
Yes,
what insane things can happen?
Yes, and even the relationships.
This was focused, even the relationships. This movie was focused on more than that. Yeah. This movie was focused on a story that was more grounded than that. It's easily the most grounded thing to have ever come out of Evil Dead, and that is not to this movie's detriment. That is to this movie's benefit, because it still has the stupid Deadites in there who are laughing around and joking around and mocking people and calling people horrible names and breaking people's arms in humorous ways and having elevators come to life and things like that. It's doing everything like that. I love so much about the Evil Dead the seriousness of which it takes its own demonic lore. But those demons, those Deadites, then being the most unserious demons you've ever come across.
Just talking so much shit and, manipulating you and just having fun in this demonic spirit. But the movie as a whole taking itself completely seriously.
Yeah, which Evil Dead hasn't done. Evil Dead's always had a sense of not taking itself seriously because it just wants to be
and being kind of self-aware.
It wants to be entertaining. It wants to be a little bit self-aware. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, a little bit campy.
Certainly Evil Dead 2, I think, is particularly aware of itself because is it a remake of the first? Is it a sequel to the first? Is it Sam Raimi just going, we have more money now, let's half redo the first
remake.
or half make it a sequel? We don't really know what Evil Dead 2 is. It's a bit of everything.
Yes. So I think even just like I said with the relationships, like, in the first two movies, you're dealing with couples. In the remake, you're getting like a friendship dynamic, brother and sister. So I think what what really can latch you onto a more serious tone is really focusing in on these mothering themes with,
Yeah.
the sister, having to deal with impending motherhood and being scared of that, and then being thrust into this position where she is going to have to step up and be a protector to these kids. So when you add those layers of this mother daughter kind of dynamic and relationship, or mother children dynamic, on top of a sisterly dynamic as well,
Yeah.
I think that adds more emotional stakes and definitely gives you a more serious tone. But then you have your possessed entities again just talking so much shit and being completely ridiculous. I was in a screening with a bunch of annoying people next to me, literally laughing at
Oh dear.
everything, the mother was saying when she was possessed, and um just
Well,
laughing
I
at
mean,
everything. And
it's not wrong to do, because this is what the Deadites have always brought on.
yes.
They are funny demons. They are
Yeah.
comedic.
Yeah.
But I mean, don't laugh at everything. That's a
No,
bit
they were laughing at everything. They
much.
were being completely obnoxious, talking out loud, calling things out. Like, yeah,
That's
they
a
were
bit
really annoying. They were really
unnecessary. You don't
annoying.
need that.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the tone of the movie. Like we say, he's very grounded. It's very small scale
Yeah.
as well, which I suppose Evil Dead's mostly always been. I think that, Ash versus Evil Dead, the TV show, was as large scale as Evil Dead ever gotten. To
Well,
be
I
fair, it
mean,
did get
I mean,
pretty large
Army of
scale, the
Darkness
entire
kind
town.
of,
And
yeah, I
Army
mean,
of Darkness, yes, okay, but Army of Darkness, it's almost its separate thing, because
well,
it's
yeah. Well, I've
it,
never seen that's
in
actually the
medieval
one.
times.
Yes, that's actually the one Evil Dead movie I haven't seen. I've never seen Army of Darkness, but I'm just, from what I know of it, it's yeah, it's medieval times and this whole different thing. So in terms of, I guess, scope and grandness, I think
I
that
guess
would
so. I
probably
suppose
be,
that's fair.
in comparison to these that are very much bottle films, kind of in one location focused.
Yeah. And I do like the location as well, of a
Yeah, this setup
condemned
of this.
apartment building
Yeah,
that's going to be demolished, and there's only a handful of people still living
still
in
living
there.
there. Yeah, so that definitely adds to the isolated, eerie vibes of what's happening. It adds to the kind of scariness of it, and just this
There's
dark, dank place surrounded by homeless
yeah,
and the rain, and
yeah,
they really set
yeah.
up
The
some
the
good
one
atmosphere.
the one day a year it rains in LA,
Yeah.
or it really rains. They
Yeah,
just have the Kandarian demons just happen to choose this day to
of
to
course. To rise up. Yeah.
not expel themselves, to rise up. Yes.
Mhm.
Um, we, I mean, it's strange, really, because we have an earthquake, don't we? That kind of
Mhm.
opens up a hole in the
In the
floor of the car park of
yeah.
this apartment building, and the son of our kind of, well, who turns into our main deadite for the entire movie, the mother.
Yeah.
Um, he goes exploring, finds this old bank vault, because this building used to be a
Was
bank. And
built.
what's
Yeah.
locked? What's locked in this bank vault? Oh, there's a load of strange old papers here, a load of old records. What's on
Records,
these
bunch of
records? Because
hanging crucifixes. Yeah.
yeah, and then a
Rosaries.
tomb. What's in this
Yeah.
tomb? And I'm thinking, what is in this tomb? Is there going to be a dead body in this tomb? Oh no, wait. It's a wrapped up book.
Yes,
Let
covered in
I
bugs. Yeah.
wonder what this book's going to be.
And it has
And it
creepy
was
teeth
actually
on it. Yeah.
it's a different book.
It
It
is.
isn't our old
Mhm.
famous Necronomicon
Necronomicon,
from
yeah.
Evil Dead. This is a different Book of the Dead.
Yeah.
Because there's several volumes, you see. I think there's 3 volumes of the Book
Yes,
of the
and I
Dead
think that's
in
what the
Evil Dead
director
lore.
wanted to do. He didn't wanna use the same book. He wanted to allude to one of the 3 that we saw in another movie
Yeah.
or the show, or I can't remember.
Yeah, the show, I think, had a couple,
Yeah.
from what I can
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the, Necronomicon with the face on and everything like that.
Yeah, so that
It
was
wasn't that
purposeful. He
book,
wanted to pick a different volume of ones that we had seen in another
which I
Evil Dead
like.
thing. Yeah.
which I like because it wouldn't have made sense to me really. Because this is ultimately a sequel, I suppose, or is it? Well, it is, but because it's in that world, so I don't think it would have made sense to use that book given what we know of that book. It would make sense to have a completely different book. Obviously, you play the records, don't you? As you would,
you do.
being nosy.
Yeah.
And you have the book. You take the book up. You of course, the book opens.
Do try to get it
when you
open.
bleed on it.
Yeah.
And then you look at all these nice pictures in the book.
Oh,
And don't
so
we all
pretty.
want these pictures hanging up
Oh
on our
yeah,
wall?
they're great.
I think some people do. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a couple of them.
Really? Really?
I mean, it would be a bit creepy. I do think
so.
I do think Evil Dead, like I said though, it takes its demonic lore so seriously, so religiously, but they end
Good
up
choice
just
of words.
being They end up being jokesters, tricksters for demons, don't they? They are not as serious as the book would have you believe they should be.
Yeah. Oh no.
And
Again,
even when
talking
they get
so
to
much shit.
even when they get to full demon form, like we see in this movie, again, spoilers for Evil Dead Rise, I suppose that should have to be said. But when you see later on in this movie, and every one of our dead people up to this point merge into this one massive arms, it looks like the Thing almost, doesn't it?
Yes.
It merges into this one just
Whole
congealed
big thing.
mass.
Yeah, crawling around.
That is its own demon, because we've actually seen a picture in the book of this particular demon. I don't know what it's
and
called.
I think there's a point to when a transformation does happen, they kind of go and show us, the audience, like its comparative kind of look in the book.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
they do. I think it's when the mother gets caught up in the elevator and all the elevator wires kind of contort her, and that's
like
when
the
she
vines.
first kind of becomes possessed, and we see the corresponding image in the book, don't we? But even when it gets to that stage, I think even that full demon is a jokester. Like, it's more serious at that point because it's not just a possessed person. I think when they're just possessed people, they're full deadites, really, as opposed to full Kandarian demons, whatever it is. Deadites themselves are entirely all about the making fun of the situation.
Oh yeah.
Demons do take it more seriously. The demons are the actual full demons are more serious, but even they're still able to play the odd trick. And we even got that in this movie. But again, what just impressed me the most, and what always impresses me the most about Evil Dead, is the quality of the effects. I mean, everything here is practical.
It looked really good.
This has been a staple of Evil Dead and always will be. I think everything here is practical, and it's so gory.
Yeah.
It's so gory. I mean, there is blood everywhere.
Oh,
in
and
this
like the
movie.
vomiting and
The vomiting is, all vomiting all these bugs
eyeball
and all
eating and
these,
intestines falling out, and
But the kind of, I suppose, the look of our mother as the kind of lead deadite in this movie herself, her looks really good. I mean, it's as easy as put a pair of contact lenses in and have your face kind of done up with latex and scratched up and all this kind of stuff,
and made
but
more
it just
pale
works
and
so well.
teeth and
It looks so good. It's the contorting that always gets me about Evil Dead movies.
like the quick sudden movements. It's very terrifying. The
But
crawling.
The effects are just so good, and it's so nice to know that
It's
has
so
been carried
refreshing,
on.
yeah, that we're still doing it in some aspects of film because everything is very much CGI and digital and,
Well, no, I don't even just mean in general, I mean in Evil Dead sense.
yeah,
I mean in an Evil Dead sense.
that
It's just
they
nice
kept
that that's
on
carried
that
on,
tradition. Yeah, yeah.
because it should do. It should never go
Yeah, of
anywhere.
course. I think that's definitely something they need to
It
keep.
looks so much better. It's visceral. There was times in Evil Dead I was just going, "Oh God, that is horrendous. That is nasty." And it's like
Mhm.
people's, like, fingernails half coming off, and
Oh, yeah, my whole audience lost it at the cheese
oh, it's
grater, like,
horrible.
yeah,
Yes, oh God, the cheese grater.
yeah,
It's horrendous. I mean, it's also everything you want from an Evil Dead movie in
yes.
terms of the
The gore
extreme
and the
gore of it.
extreme,
You're
yeah,
here
mhm,
for that. That
yeah,
is what you go to watch this movie for. You go to watch this movie for humorously extreme gore. And
yes,
you got that in droves,
in buckets
in
full.
bucketfuls, in elevator fulls. I mean,
Yes.
towards the end of the movie, they come flying out of that elevator, covered,
In
caked in
blood,
all this blood.
yes, yeah,
And you think the Shining elevator had a lot of blood in it.
yeah,
This one's on another level.
yeah, yeah.
There's a wood chipper involved.
Oh my gosh.
For our climax,
Yeah,
involves
it
a
was
wood
terrifying.
chipper.
Yeah.
You know how much blood they can cause when
Oh, yeah.
bodies get put into them.
Grind up and spit out, yeah, yeah.
It's horrendous.
Also just some great
However,
shots. Mhm.
oh yes, sorry, I'm getting very excited. You do get, and I love this as well, is you do get your, again, this is showing that it wants to show love to previous
To
Evil
David,
Dead, but still
mhm.
wants to be fresh. I think you always have to show love to previous. I'll swallow your souls in there,
Mhm.
which is what you want. Your shotguns in there, your chainsaws in there.
Chainsaws in there, yeah,
The only thing
mhm.
it didn't have was someone's hand getting cut off.
Yes. I
That
mean, the
might
mom,
come in our next movie.
yeah. I think the mom gets, like, her leg and her arm blown off, but no, no.
No,
And the
no
sisters,
hand crawling around,
no.
strangling yourself. None of that.
No, no. So maybe
Unfortunately.
that's yet to come. But yeah, like some great shots in here. Like we definitely were getting some De Palma homages in here, with the, dual focused shot,
Oh
when
God,
she's at the
yeah.
stove and the focus is on the mother and then it's focused on her kids in the background in the same shot. So very much giving Carrie vibes, in terms of
Yes.
another horror film. So yeah, and the kind of running of POV shot, very very familiar as well.
I mean, the end of the movie as well, isn't it? The end of the movie has the end of Evil Dead movie. What is the end of Evil Dead movies? You get the zoo. I always
Mhm.
call it the zoo because you know what I mean when you talk
Yes,
about Evil
yeah.
Dead.
That's
It's
all you need to
a
say, and I know
camera
exactly what
that
you're talking about.
zooms across the forest floor and smashes through the door. Bruce Campbell turns around, screams because the Deadites there, and that's the end of the movie. That is
Mhm.
also the end of this movie.
Yes, which circles back to the beginning of the movie. So I like
It
that,
does. It's not Bruce
it
Campbell,
ends,
of course, but
yes, it ends like what we know from other Evil Dead films, but the kind of different aspect of it is that we already saw kind of where that goes at the beginning of the movie. So then we
yeah,
see how that started, which I think is a really fun, um, kind of, twist on that
there's always
familiar
a lot of
thing.
POV, always a lot of POV in Evil Dead, and there's a lot of POV in this movie,
Mhm.
and I really like that.
Yeah.
I just, I, I can't speak highly enough of how wonderfully it blended its love for past Evil Dead
Mhm.
and its wanting to be completely fresh and completely new and actually ground itself. Like,
Yes.
who ever thought a grounded Evil Dead would tonally work? But it does. Because it's just the Deadites that are playing the jokes. It's the Deadites that bring the comedy. Everything else is
pretty
serious.
straight, yeah.
Because you don't have Bruce Campbell in here who's playing it up as he does.
Yeah.
And as he wanted to, and as the movies at that time and the show wanted to as well.
Yeah.
They fit perfectly. They're supposed to be completely exaggerated and hammy. But this isn't. And it blended
so well
far
with
better than I could have thought it would do.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I think that's something that the remake was lacking, was actually having fun.
Yeah.
It was too serious.
True, because
straight.
we're dealing with somebody who overdosed on drugs and they're detoxing, so it was very much having a commentary and a more emotional stakes, and definitely taking itself serious in a lot of ways. And I don't think we get into really campy silliness until like the very end of the remake.
No, but is even that campy, or is it? It still takes itself serious.
I think she's able to.
There's little humor.
Yes, but I think in the end, with that kind of final killing, I think that is where the most kind of Evil Dead vibes come in.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this movie really finds a good balance of taking itself serious because you're dealing with these themes, these really interesting themes. But yeah, having these Deadites be, talking all this shit and being kind of wild and crazy in terms of the things that they're saying, really, really making a fun balance of what the original films were doing.
I honestly, I didn't think I would come out of it loving it as much as I have.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it.
Wonderful movie.
Yes, yeah.
It really is. All the applause for Evil Dead Rise. I want to see more of this kind of thing.
I do too.
Like, just obviously you can't have the same characters. Well, you could.
I mean, we have 2 + 1 on the way.
2 + 1 on the way. That is true, who end up surviving the movie. And I suppose kind of an auntie and niece dynamic would be interesting going forward anyway.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny how like the 7-year-old survives this movie?
Yeah, the seemingly easiest one to plug off, but she had Stephanie. She had Stephanie. So
Stephanie, her little weapon with a baby's head on.
Yeah,
a doll baby's head on, to protect her. And she does actually stab her own deadite sister through the mouth with it as well, which is nice, isn't it? But I think it's everything you want from an Evil Dead movie and more, which is just a wonderful thing to have. More this version of Evil Dead, please. I think it's the perfect version of Evil Dead to go forward with.
Yeah, definitely tapping into different things tone-wise with the franchise, but still keeping the inherent points of the original films purely there.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yay.
Well, yay. Massive love for Evil Dead Rise. It's going to take some doing to beat that for a horror movie of this year, I think. Yes, okay, Scream 6. Good, but is it actually as good as Evil Dead Rise?
You can't ask me that. You know what I'll say. No, I do prefer.
Well,
I prefer
McDermott Mulroney, and the ending of Scream 6 was a little bit of a misfire.
Yeah, that is true. But I'm devoted, hopelessly devoted to Scream.
To Scream. Hopelessly devoted to Scream.
Yeah,
that's what you should sing. Well, Let's end today's episode then, Jeannine, with a little bit of fun and games like we always like to do. We're playing the same game we've been playing for the last 2 episodes because it's just a good format of game, isn't it?
Okay.
We won't do too much because it is late, and we don't want to go so stupidly long with the show.
Yeah.
So we do have a couple. I do have a couple written down. So we'll get our timer out because this is what we do. And I think we have found a really great game. And because today has been so heavily horror focused, vampires and blood and gore and all this kind of fun stuff. Jeannine, I would like first off for you to bet yourself, of course, as you're supposed to do it. Claim how many of a certain topic you can name in 20 seconds. This certain topic will be, if I can just get my timer up, yes, 20 seconds. How many Dracula actors do you think you can name in 20 seconds? These are individuals who have played Count Dracula in movies.
I don't think I can. I mean, okay. I'm gonna say 4. 5.
5. I thought you might go for 5.
Okay.
5.
Yes.
5 Count Dracula actors in 20 seconds, in homage of Renfield and all the vampires we've been talking about today. Jeannine, your 20 seconds begins now.
Okay. Bela Lugosi.
Yes.
Christopher Lee.
Yes.
Leslie Nielsen.
I'll give you it.
Luke Evans.
Yes.
And
there is your time.
Dang it. I should have stuck with my 4.
You could have gone with Gary Oldman.
Yes.
You could have gone with 2 other people that played Dracula for the Universal Monsters movies, Lon Chaney Jr., John Carradine. You could have gone Frank Langella.
I almost said Lon Chaney, but I was like, is it Lon Chaney or Lon Chaney Jr.? Yeah.
You could have gone Nick Cage. He's just played. We just been talking about it.
Played Dracula. Yes, we did just talk about it.
Literally just played Dracula.
Yeah. Yes.
Unlucky there, Jeannine. Unlucky.
Yes. I'll let the pressure get to me.
It may be temporarily.
Yeah. Okay.
For our second round, and we will have more rounds if you are feeling up to it.
Okay.
So I will. You are allowed 1 movie per franchise as well for this one. Just to clarify.
Keep it there. Okay.
1 movie per franchise. 20 seconds. Thanks to Evil Dead Rise, or because of Evil Dead Rise, to name as many slasher movies as you can.
Slasher movies?
Is Evil Dead a slasher movie? No, not necessarily, but gore, slash, kills, blood.
Okay.
But you can have 1 movie per franchise.
Oh.
20 seconds for slasher movies.
Okay, I'm gonna go 5 again.
5 slasher movies. Any slasher movies? Anything? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. 5 slasher movies in 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And your time begins now.
Scream. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I'll give you it.
I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yes.
Urban Legend. and
Okay.
Friday the 13th.
Okay, there you go. Urban legend, slasher.
It is a slasher.
Really, is it a slasher movie?
Teen slasher.
Okay. Well, would you like some other rounds? Would you like maybe one more round?
Yes, let's go for
one more. Let's go one more round then, and let's go to 20 seconds again, and let's switch this up entirely. How many? Oh yes. Let's really go to. No,
you're getting really excited.
Town on this one.
No, you're scaring
What about?
me.
No. What about Oscar Best Pictures?
Oh no.
Of a certain decade.
Okay. Can you say like one?
One?
Yes. My Oscar knowledge is not good at all.
Okay, well, how many Oscar Best Picture winners do you think you can name? Of all time, Oscar Best Picture winners do you think you can name in 20 seconds? I will get the list.
We'll go with 5 again, I guess.
5? I think you can do more than 5 Best Picture winners in 20 seconds. I really do.
Okay, I'll go.
It doesn't
8.
have to be in order. It can be completely random.
Okay, I'll do 8.
8 Best Picture winners.
Yeah.
20 seconds. Okay. Jeannine, your time starts now.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yes.
The Great Ziegfeld.
Yes.
It Happened One Night.
Yes.
Moonlight. The Shape of Water. Crash.
That's all. Your time has flown by there.
That went too quick. That was not 20 seconds. That was not 20 seconds.
I mean, the Oscars knowledge perhaps is something to be focused on in a trivia sense there, Jeannine. I'm not going to call you out for anything.
Yeah, you just did.
No, I said I'm not going to call you out for anything.
Wink, wink. Okay, well, I'm just going to be preparing some.
You can be cruel to me next week with fun and
Yes.
games. Yeah, you could be, by all means, be cruel to me next week.
Yes.
For fun and games, but I think we've had a fun episode today.
Yes.
Of Monday Madness, as we always tend to do when we are on this show, talking all our fun trailers and news in rumours things and our reviews, and always a fun time on Monday Madness. Of course, it is, Jeannine. It is not the only show we have on the It's a Wonderful podcast feed, and it is not the only thing we have on this YouTube channel either, though. If you are watching this, you have seen the link at the bottom, scrolling by all episode, showing all our fun stuff that we do have outside of here. But subscribe and ding your notification bell on this YouTube channel if you are watching Monday Madness today for all the fun stuff we have here. Watch-alongs and Morgan's movie collection and other reviews and retro trailer reactions and all Jeannine's Scream stuff that she did. There was a hell of a lot.
Yes,
really was.
Still more to come.
It's always a fun time. But we do have the It's a Wonderful podcast feed, of course we do, where you can find Monday Madness in audio form, as well as Morgan Hasn't Seen and It's a Wonderful podcast, the main show on Wednesdays and Fridays. Morgan Hasn't Seen, we are still on our Nick Cage series. So this was in honor of Renfield. We have talked about there. This coming week, we will be rounding out that series, closing it out with The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and talking that movie on Wednesday. And the main show every Friday, where we celebrate old movies. We discover new old movies. We show love to them. We give them a platform to show themselves. And we enjoy them. We enjoy talking about them. We enjoy learning about them. And that is always a fun time on It's a Wonderful Podcast, the main show on a Friday. But yes, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we do have you covered on the It's a Wonderful Podcast feed, on all major podcast platforms, definitely. You can also support us on Patreon or donate if you like. If you want to do that, there are links in the description to go and support us over there. We can't do what we do without that support, and we are always incredibly thankful for our patrons and donators and other such people like that. We certainly are. Is there anything else, Jeannine? There's social media as well, isn't there? Yes. We're on Twitter at It's a Wonderful One. If you would like to follow us there, you can find me on Twitter at the Purple Don with a 3 instead of the E and the, because, Jeannine,
3 is the magic number.
On Instagram and TikTok at the Purple Don. All your vampirical stuff is where.
You can find me at JeannineDeBean_ on Twitter, Jeannine DeBean on Instagram and TikTok. If you want to get any merch for any of our shows, you can check out the link that's been scrolling by or the link in the description, or just search It's a Wonderful Podcast on teespring.com. We have some really fun designs over there, all our logos, some fun Stranger Things designs, so please check it out. And if you want to purchase any of my art in print form, you can find that at my Big Cartel shop, g9design.bigcartel.com.
Well, there's definitely only one thing we're getting you to do, isn't there, to count us down today? Because it just makes sense. It's even
of
about
course.
counting.
Yes,
He's a
okay.
Count.
All right.
3.
2. 1.
That's your best impression ever. Bye.